Here we are with the Barnes & Noble's Nook 4E. I'm giving you guys a 2-month impressions with this device. If you checked out my original video with my initial impressions with this device, I'm going to go over and let you guys know how I feel about those initial impressions, the workarounds that I found for this device, and pretty much let you know if this budget device is worth it, or should you perhaps go for a more premium, more balanced device. So the device starts up just fine. You're not going to have any issues with the startup of this device. I'm really enjoying this as a reading tool. Essentially, my experience with this is it has greatly sped up my ability to read through a lot of my content. Having the ability to hold so many different books and so much different content on this thing it has become an essential part of my life so far. It's very easy to carry. It's lightweight. You can pull this thing out pretty much anywhere, whether you're in a doctor's office or you got a little 15-minute break at work. That's pretty much how I've been using it. You know, going to dentist appointments and maybe helping out my parents do a few things. Whenever I get some spare time, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes here or there, I go ahead and bring this thing out and I read through whatever it is I'm currently reading. I've gotten used to the e-paper feel and style. At first that was a bit of an adversity, just seeing that slight sluggishness. I've learned that, you know, you got to be a little patient with it and give it time to respond. But because it's a reading tool, most of the time you're not going to be tapping through the screen and going through different menus and trying to figure out and find different things and multitasking. You're really just pulling this thing out just to read. So whatever it is you currently are reading, you're going to click on it. Just like so. You're going to give it its time to load everything up for you, and you're going to read. So it's not really an issue for me. I've gotten used to it. It's reliable, it's functional, and it does the job just well. So as you can see here, the different viewing angles are just fine. The ability to change that screen lighting through the glow light features are amazing for me. I'm able to read in the complete darkness without any strain or any suffocation on my eyes for hours at a time. The page turners work well. And primarily when you're using this thing to read, once you've loaded it up, got your book on there that you want to read, when you do start reading, you're not going to really be fiddling too much with touching the screen. You're going to be mostly using those page turners, which are an easy click of a button. Anytime you buy something as a dedicated tool, the biggest part of the functionality that you want from it is the longevity of its intended purpose. So because this device is bought specifically for reading, obviously you can read using many other devices. Why would you spend hundreds of dollars on perhaps a dedicated device? It's going to be the ability and the capabilities of what you're using it for as its intended purpose, which is for this device to read. So for this device here, its touting of weeks of battery life I find to be true. I am actually getting those weeks of battery life for my usage. The most I've read in a particular day or in a particular week was about 6 hours a day. And within that 6-hour reading span, I only dropped maybe about 11% on this device. So my summarization of that is that, yeah, if you're using this thing sparingly or even high intensity throughout a week, throughout 2 weeks worth of usage, you're going to literally get that much time out of it. Now, this varies from person to person. Some people literally do have the time to read all day. Some people don't. Some of us have, you know, various activities that we do or different types of jobs that we do where it does allow us to read a little bit more frequently. So, you know, maybe that's going to drop a little bit. But for its intended purpose of being a dedicated reader, you're literally going to get an exceptional amount of time out of this device for its use case, which is just to read books and read magazines and go through novels and other reading materials. So the battery life has held up as a true testament to what Nook is doing here. Going over some of the features, as you can see here at the bottom, it's telling me what chapter I'm on, the percentage of the book that I've read, how much I have left of that book. It even will tell me how much time it takes me to get through a general chapter. I find that information to be useful. Sometimes it makes me read a little bit faster if I want to get through a chapter as fast as possible to get to a different part. And sometimes it makes me read a little bit slower in case maybe I feel like I'm not comprehending or I'm missing a few things out of it. But if you look up here at top, you can change the font size. You can change the font size, the margin spacing, and the justification of the print. So those things are basic features that you'll get with this device as intended with reading and helping you read as best you can and as much as possible. So some of the key features that you'll get on this is you'll also get a notebook. So if I click here on the binoculars word or in the pressure word, it's going to come up with the dictionary. If I can get that to focus. There you go. So pressure, it's going to tell us the noun, and it's going to give us a general dictionary understanding of what pressure is. Excuse me. So this is something that impressed me, and it impressed me because you can actually use this feature without Wi-Fi. That was something that astounded me and that I found very useful. So if you're a person that perhaps enjoys words, if you like reading older literature where they're maybe using words that we don't really use today anymore, this is going to be very, very useful for you. And you'll get a whole lot more value out of your reading and out of your comprehension with this tool. And not happening to be connected to Wi-Fi, having a dictionary built into this device, I think adds a whole lot of value. Now, there may be other readers that do this, but this is my first reader. So for me, this was something that I found quite useful and I was astounded by. Now, if you look up here, you'll see a whole bunch of different features and functionalities. You can highlight words, phrases, and paragraphs, and you can also change the tonality of how it highlights, whether you want it like a light gray or a darker gray. You can even add small memos with that checklist right there where you can save a word, a sentence, a paragraph, anything that you might find important or something where you want to take notes from or about. Maybe you're in a reading book club, maybe you're using, you put PDF files on this thing and you're using it to take notes and go through, different books and reading materials that you may have to go through for class. This is a great tool, and I found it to be very valuable and very useful. And you just simply click off there and it goes away. So going back to the home button here, if I'm going to the home screen, one thing that I really enjoy that I primarily read is manga. I love anime manga, and I find this tool, the Nook 4E, to be just the right size for a manga book reader. If you look here, the inkiness of the text, the texture of the images is very clear, very focused. That impresses me, being as this has a very low PPI resolution in comparison to maybe some other readers on the market. That's very impressive to me, the level of detail that you're able to get out of this. And like I said, you can change the font sizing and the margins on this thing, so in case you needed it to be a little bit more inky or a little bit more darker over the images, you can do that without a problem. You can change that without a problem, and the viewing angles on it are just perfect and flawless with this device. So as you can see, there's no like margins on this thing. There's a bit of a side paneling margin right there. But as you could tell, that's a part of the actual page. It's not like a dead spot or a blank spot on the page. It's edge to edge, corner to corner, covering with the images and with the text. It's filling out nicely. There you go. Clicking on the page, it brings up a couple things here. Now if you click on this, you can bring up, let's get that in focus. You can bring up tables of content, table of contents, and you can also bookmark spots in your book. You can see here, as you can see, the paneling switched over to the other side of the Nook. So it's literally edge to edge, corner to corner with everything. So if you're looking for a nice little manga reader, I definitely recommend you get the Nook 4E. It does a great job. You'll get a lot of good contrast in direct sunlight. You can change the lighting scenarios. I actually have it on automated, so it kind of auto changes depending on the scenarios or the lighting of the room for me, and I don't necessarily have to worry about it. Now, coming to some of the initial issues that we were faced with this device, and one of the things that really concerned me was the charging. If we look here, I have it plugged into my charger, and you see that light flashing on and off. It's kind of finicky with the charging. I have it all the way securely plugged in. Yeah, it's not really off or off-centered. The charging cable isn't funny. I have used the original charging cable that came into the box. You'll find this issue not only when you're charging the device, but also when you're plugged into a computer. So your computer might have a hard time reading this device unless you can get it at a good enough angle where, like it's doing right now, it's charging properly. So what I found is you have to kind of stabilize it. Once you get it in the stabilized position, and I'm sure many of you 5, 6, 7 years ago has dealt with this with some other devices where, you know, the charging a little finicky. Maybe you dealt with this with like Game Boys and little devices like that. That's kind of what this charging port kind of reminds me of. It reminds me of an old school charging cable or old school charging port that was kind of finicky, you know, and it just required it to be where it wanted it to be at a certain angle it needed to be at, but it worked fine once you found that range. And that's what I'm experiencing right now with this device. I found the range. I leave it where it's at. When it's charging, it's good. When I connect it to my PC, it's fine once I find the right angle. You know, maybe I have to set it up and have it kind of angled, sitting on the cable a little bit like that, and lean it up against something. But I can get it to read just fine once I get it to kind of acknowledge that it's plugged in. That's an annoying thing. I leave that up for you guys to decide whether or not you want to deal with that. I have bought a second one of these devices. This is my original one from my original review. I have bought a second one of these devices, and I've given it to my grandmother. I've experienced it on that device as well. But it's not a big enough deal for me to forego this device because I did only get it at $100. If you're a Barnes & Noble's member, you get that 10% off. Yeah, maybe you get the little insurance on it, which is $19.99. You walk out of there, you pay 120 bucks. And for a reader of this capacity, of this build quality, that's just giving you so many different little features to help you read, it's not a deal breaker for me. I'm willing to deal with it. Are you willing to deal with it? That's up for you to decide. But it's not so much of a problem for me where I can't get this thing to function right for me. I rarely have to plug it in because my battery life is working so well for me. I'm able to get up to about 3 weeks worth of battery life. And, you know, most of the time I'm not even turning this thing off. I'm just closing it up in the billfold of the case. I'm not even fully turning it off. So I'm sure I can get a lot more battery out of it if I just fully turned off the device. So that's something that, you know, just seems to be an issue with this device. And like I said, I have 2 of them now, and I've dealt with it on 2 different devices. So the only other issue that I face with this device is the overheating issue. It seems to be something that just happens with this device. It'll overheat, it will shut off on you. but once you turn it back on after it overheats, it works just fine. One thing that it does have an issue with is that the side buttons on this thing stop working. So once it overheats and you shut it back on and the button scrollers stop working, you have to then turn it off again and turn it back on in order to get the buttons to start working again. I have done this 4 or 5 different times. It has worked every single time. Therefore, I consider this device to be reliable. The reliability of this device and the consistency of it, of how to fix those small issues, are seemingly reliable to me, and I find this thing to be a very good little tool and a very good little e-reader. And obviously I haven't tried any other types of e-readers, but if you're looking for something simple, if you're looking for something that maybe you can give to a child, or maybe that you can give as a small gift to somebody, I definitely recommend the Barnes & Noble's Nook 4E. Alright guys, you go ahead and leave me a comment, ask me any questions that you like. Sorry that it took a little bit of time to get this video out to you, but I was slightly delayed, but we got to it. See you guys next time. I'll answer any further questions in the comment section. Let me know if you guys got to try this device, and if you are willing to try this device, or if you have another device that you think is equal to this or is a little bit better. Give anybody any recommendations down in the comment section. Thank you.